In this episode, we will try to find answers to non-trivial questions. Do computers speak foreign languages? What language do they use when communicating with each other? But before we find answers to these questions, let's start from the beginning. According to Wikipedia, there are currently over 7,000 languages spoken in the world. The topic of linguistic diversity is the source of many sayings. Among them, it is worth quoting a Czech proverb. Those who know many languages live as many lives as the languages they know. Or a Chinese one. The best time to learn a language was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. In a globalized world, the ability to use foreign languages is very important. It allows you to communicate with people from other countries. So how can people from two countries speaking different languages find a common one and talk? We see two people here. Mia is from Germany and Lucas is from France. How can they communicate with each other? So far they are not succeeding. Lucas doesn't understand the question he's asked and starts to get irritated. There are two different approaches to solve this communication problem. Let's take a closer look at them. In the first approach, Mia learns French, which allows her to communicate freely in this language. This is certainly convenient for Lucas, who no longer gets frustrated. Instead, he is able to provide help. This was the first approach. One person learns a foreign language which allows him or her to communicate with people who speak it. And what does the second approach we mentioned look like? In the second approach, Mia and Lucas both learn a third language and communicate with each other using it. In our case it is English. This third language is the so-called lingua franca, again from Wikipedia. Lingua franca is a language systematically used to make communication possible between groups of people who do not share a native language or dialect, particularly when it is a third language that is distinct from both of the speaker's native languages. A good example of today's lingua franca is English. The number of native speakers of English is much smaller than the number of people who declare they know it. This all sounds very interesting, but how does it apply to computers? Let's get back to our main topic. According to various sources, there are approximately 700 programming languages in the computer world. The most popular ones include Java and Python. Even though their number is clearly smaller than the number of human languages, the problems remain the same. How can System A, which was written in Java for example, communicate with System B, which was written in Python? Can computers become polyglots and learn a second language? In other words, is approach number one, which we described a moment ago, possible here? Unfortunately not. One system will not be able to learn the other's language. So how can they communicate with each other? Let's go back for a moment to the question about the nearest pharmacy that Mia asked Lucas a few slides ago. Who among us hasn't used an application installed on the phone to find the answer to such a question? Where is the nearest pharmacy, restaurant or gas station? To use this service you will need internet. Why is this necessary? Because the application on our phone must ask this question to an external service. But how will it be formulated? Computer systems do not talk to each other in the sense of a human conversation. Instead, they exchange raw data. So, most likely, our phone will send a query that will include what we are looking for in our current geographical position. In response, it will most likely receive a list of geographical positions, which it will then display on a map. But if System A doesn't know what language System B is written in, how can this happen? Finally, we get to the answer to our starting question. Do computers speak foreign languages? As we have already established, this is not possible. We also established that communication between computer systems in practice means data exchange. In the way the data is formatted, this is the common ground that enables communication. There are certain standards in this area, the most popular of which are JSON, XML and CSV. It is the lingua franca of computers. How does it look in practice? The first does not know the language in which System B was written. However, it can pack data in an appropriate way, in accordance with existing standards, and then send it using endpoint. On the other end, System B knows nothing about System A, but can receive and then read data that is formatted according to certain standards. Let's briefly look at these three different standards. Let's start with JSON. A file containing data in this format will have the extension .json. As we can see, JSON uses objects consisting of attribute value pairs. The keys that are on the left represent data names, on the left are values. In this way, we can freely construct data structures that can be sent. Then let's move on to XML. An XML file contains XML code and ends with the file extension XML. As you can see, this file consists of data and tags. The values are shown in purple and the tags are shown in blue. Finally, we have the CSV format. Here, the first line represents the data names separated by commas. In the next lines we will find appropriate data values. As we can see in the given examples, the same data is formatted in 3 different ways, depending on the adopted standard. However, these formats allow different systems to communicate with each other. Now let's move on to a short summary. Computers do not speak foreign languages. Communication between computers involves the exchange of data. Just like in our examples, the first system did not know anything about System B, however, it knew one of the data formatting standards, for example JSON. At the other end, System B knew nothing about System A but was able to communicate with it because it was able to read properly formatted data. Then, using the same standard, he could send a response. JSON, XML and CSV are the lingua franca of computer systems. They allow them to communicate with each other.